Hello, my name is Robbie, he, him, and I am here with some other members of the Gauntlet to do a play test of a game called Waiting Rooms. And this is a game that I am currently in the process of developing. It spun out of a Game Chef competition, and it is now kind of moving on from that as I'm continuing to develop it and refine it. And we are joined today by three other members of the Gauntlet. And we have already gone through safety tools as well as talking about the concept, the aim, the tone, and the subject matter of the game. So some of those preliminaries we've already been through. But I do want right now to just have the other players introduce themselves. And I'm just going to work left to right across my screen. So we'll start with Jim.
Hey, I am Jim Crocker. I've been on the Gauntlet for, gosh, about a year and a half now, something like that. Folks who know me from outside the Gauntlet probably know me because I sell a whole lot of indie role-playing and story games, much like the one we're about to play today, and like ones I've played with both Sarah and Ryan and Robbie on other occasions here on the Gauntlet. So if you want to find me online, I'm at Jim Likes Games on Twitter and jimlikesgames.com on the internet if you want to buy a game from me. So hopefully I will see you at a convention sometime during the year here.
Okay. Ryan?
As you may have gathered, my name is Ryan. I use he, him pronouns. I've been on the Gauntlet for like 2 weeks shy of a year, and you can find me on Twitter at Transaleskin if you're into that sort of thing. Oh, and submit to the Gauntlet Codex is miscellany, because if I don't get enough entries, I have to write more myself, and no one wants that. That's the worst of all worlds.
Okay. And Sarah?
Sarah, she, her. I've been with the Gauntlet for about 6 months, I think. Joined late last summer, early fall. And yeah.
Okay.
Good times.
Okay. And I should just also let anybody who's watching this know that we have a Roll20 app open, but that will not be showing on the screen. I think generally we'll just kind of be working off of that. So we're going to go on and dive into Waiting Rooms. This is a game which features a number of characters who do not know who they are as the game begins, but the characters have woken up in limbo, and in the course of playing the game, the characters are going to learn something about themselves. They're going to learn something about the other characters and what their relationships were. And the characters are also going to be learning something about the moral universe that they lived in. So there's both a lot of like character building and also world building that goes on in the course of the game. And so to get things started, we are going to turn to our opening script. And what we're going to do is we will take turns reading this script paragraph by paragraph. And so, Jim, could I go on and get you to, if you see that script, if you can go on and read the first paragraph.
Mute, because it's the Gauntlet. After a long dream, I have awakened. I now sit in front of a video screen. On one tab, I see the faces of others. Hello, can you see and hear me as well?
Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear you too.
Yes, I too can see and hear you.
Good. I sense that we have died and entered limbo. A judgment surely awaits us.
Okay, and then Ryan, feel.
I can tell by looking at your confused faces that you've forgotten almost everything about yourselves. I too have forgotten, but you also seem familiar. Perhaps we all knew each other in our previous lives. With each other's help, maybe we can discover who we were and what karmic destiny each of us has earned.
Okay, and Sarah?
It may be that we were enemies in our previous lives, or maybe we were special friends. Perhaps we knew each other only in passing. Whatever the case, we're now on equal footing. If during our wanderings you need to slow down, to reverse course, to discuss the situation, take another approach, or fade into black, let us know. We're here for you.
On another tab, I have a grid which I can draw upon and use to make notes. On the top of the grid, someone has written, "A sheepskin for memories. Explore the stories, be weighed." Do you see this as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Jim?
Perhaps we should heed the advice. Would one of you please draw a small room or rectangle somewhere on the grid? Let us imagine that we are together and that this sketch represents the room where we are gathered.
Okay, and so will one of you draw with Roll20? You should be able to just kind of on the top left, there's the a tool, the third one down, where you can kind of draw.
I attempted to draw upon the sheepskin. Can you see the thing I drew?
Is it that red?
No, that messes mine.
Okay.
I made a lavender square, but I'm not sure if it's visible to anyone but me.
Okay, no, I
can see it.
I can see it.
I can see that as well. Okay.
Lavender square. That's great.
Okay, so where are we now? Okay, so now this would be Ryan, if you want to read the next.
Let us imagine ourselves wandering through limbo. As we do so, we should all add to this grid whenever we wish. This will be a record of our lost memories, which makes it important.
Okay, yeah, and what I would say is that if at any point you want to make a note on the sheepskin, draw something on there, you should definitely feel free to do so. And it's fun to do, but it's also helpful for the game because, you know, if there's important things that kind of come up in the game, then it's kind of good to have perhaps that noted somewhere on the sheepskin.
So should that square be bigger? Are we all supposed to be drawing inside of it?
Well, that's going to be just a room, and as the game goes on, we'll be moving into other rooms from that.
Got it.
So
It's a map. Cool. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, it's a map. Yes, and so I think that room is perfectly fine for right now. Okay, so and then Sarah, if you want to read the next.
I see another tab. It says waiting rooms, karma tokens. This is where we will make and receive judgments.
Okay, we now need to decide who among us is feeling the most righteous. And Jim, if you'll read the next.
Sorry, I have many tabs open in front of me. If there's a tie, the righteous one should count the letters of their full names. The person with the longest name goes last. We will start with whoever I see next in order on my screen, and play will proceed in order from there.
Okay, so Is anybody feeling righteous today?
Who's got the shortest name?
I think that's a no. Nobody's feeling particularly.
Well, I guess nobody's feeling righteous, so I need to count we count the letters of our name then. I think.
Question: are we using our real names or do we make up?
Yeah, I would say our real names right now. We'll go with that.
Which we don't have to share. We just have to say how many letters are in it.
Correct.
Okay.
And counting the middle name as well.
Yep.
So. Okay, I have 16.
I have 19.
I have 18.
I've
also got 18.
Okay, so Ryan, you'll go last. And so if I just go by the way that the faces appear on my screen, I think the order will be Sarah, then me, then Jim, then Ryan. And that'll help me to kind of keep track. All right. Let me make my way back here. And okay, so, and then I think we're up to Ryan, if you want to read the next line.
Gather into the glow of your video screen.
And Sarah?
The game has begun.
Okay. So here's the way the game now goes. Sarah, it is your turn. When it's your turn, you are called the Seeker. And you need to select one of the other players to be the revealer for this turn. And that's up to you.
I choose you.
Okay. So, and then you will go to the Roll20 app and you will, using the drawing tool, you can draw a line from that initial room and then draw another room on there. And you should also, with this room that we are now entering, Sarah, you should describe an object or feature of the room which is connected to a memory of your character.
There is a very large table made of wood, carved. It looks like it weighs at least 100 pounds, possibly more. It has one of those, it has one leg in the middle with several clawed extensions. But each one of them is different. One is like a lion's paw, one is an eagle's claw, one is a human hand, and one is a hoof. It's a dark wood table, very highly polished. And
Okay.
aside from that, the feet there is pretty plain.
Okay, so I just made a little note of that. Okay, and then you're gonna roll, and I'd say that that's somehow tied to a memory, and that is there for other people to kind of, but it's tied to your character's memory. You may have some idea of what that memory is right now, or you may not, and that's fine. You're going to roll a 6-sided dice, and there's like a polyhedral thing now. On the left, do you see that kind of 20-sided die? Okay, you rolled a 2, and this roll is determining what level or story of Limbo we are starting on, and that means Happy Times is our starting level. So I will find my Happy Times deck. Okay. So what you're going to do, Sarah, is I can shuffle this and make sure I've shuffled the deck. Okay, it should be shuffled now. And are you able to? What you're going to do is you're going to take a card now. The card probably will have 2 questions on it, and you're going to ask me the first question. And then I will ask you the second question. Are you able to, on the Roll20, to get the card?
Yeah, I can see them. Purple. Just one?
Yeah, just one.
Okay.
Okay, and we should, I see it goes there. We want to flip it over.
Ah.
How does that work? Oh, there it is. Okay, and I'll make it bigger. I think I can make it bigger. 1 second. Okay, so you're the seeker, and you asked that first question to me.
What is a memory that brought you pain that you don't want to forget?
A memory that brought me pain. I remember I remember a terrible accident that destroyed one of my arms, and it was very painful, but I mean, you may say, well, you know, why would I not want to forget it? Well, I mean, as a result of losing the arm, I got a new arm in its place, and that new arm was wonderful. It had I mean, it was kind of a robotic type arm that was replaced, and it had feeling that was in it, but it actually ended up being much better than my previous arm. And then I'm going to ask you the second question. What is something you enjoyed, but which also caused regret?
And does that have to do with this table or completely separate?
It could. I mean, it could. It really can have to do with anything that has been in the game. So it could have something to do with the table. It could have something to do with what I just said, or it could be just something new added to the mix.
I think I have this memory of being in a furniture store, but it feels comfortable. Like maybe I worked there or lived there or something. And I'm looking at this table, evaluating it, and it looks different in this memory. It doesn't look quite the same. It has a different top, like there's like drag marks like cut into the top of the table. Those are all gone in the one I see before me now. And there's a woman standing on the other side of it. In my memory, it's my mother. And she's telling me that she doesn't want this kind of life for me working in a place like this. This isn't going anywhere. There's no future in furniture repair. And I'm telling her that this is what I like doing. I like the work and giving something people that they can kind of build their lives around almost. But even as I say that, I can see how upset she's getting. And I'm sorry for that.
Okay. So with that, Ryan and Jim, you will go to the form, and so Sarah is player 1 and I am player 4, and so you both assign 3 karma tokens based on those responses. And then you can, continue to do that. I'm going to just go on, and I'm the next seeker. So I will see if I can put my own drawing ability to work here.
And so we don't see what other people are giving us, do we?
That's correct. Yeah, you do not see what they are giving you.
But also,
so I move us to this new room, and in this room, I see a off to the side of the on one side of the room, I see a like an operating table that is there, and I associate this table with the table that I was on when I received this new kind of cybernetic arm that I recall getting. And so I'm gonna this. And I'm going to have Ryan, you'll be the revealer this time. And I'm going to pick up the next card, hopefully. And I will make it bigger. What was the most effective tactic that you used to get sweet revenge on your enemy?
Sorry, this implies a bunch of stuff about my character, and I'm going, how do I even work with this?
I think it also is appropriate to say, I mean, if you feel like that question just doesn't apply to you, you know, I mean, right, you have pretty free reign in terms of how you respond.
In that case, no, I wasn't a very vengeful person. I didn't seek out revenge on an enemy, and I wouldn't find it sweet.
Okay. And I should also say, I should have pointed this out. Once per every level we are in, if any other character wants to ask a clarifying question, you can do that. So like we're on the floor happy time. So, you know, everybody has available to them one clarifying question that they can ask at any point, okay, during this floor. You just get one per level though. Okay. And there are five levels to limbo. Okay, so
do I read the other half of the card then?
yes, then you read the other half.
What tragedy befell your enemy that caused you to feel a sadistic joy?
Um, I would say it wasn't. It wasn't a personal enemy of me, but I do remember that the society that I lived in was, for a period of time, was ruled by a very militaristic, belligerent enemy. They were quite powerful. I remember that they had superior weaponry and armaments. I myself was not a kind of military person. I mean, I was just what I would call just an ordinary person in our society. But I certainly remember a period of time when we were kind of having to deal with this belligerent, militaristic, rather cruel and cold group. And I do remember, though, that what turned the tide was a nasty virus that we apparently were immune to, or at least our doctors were able to kind of keep us from falling prey to it. But there was, I remember the virus was absolutely devastating, and it was a very fast moving, often lethal virus. And I mean, I'm not normally the type of person to take delight in the pain of others. But, you know, in this case, I remember that sadistic may be a little strong, but I certainly didn't lose a lot of sleep over the fact that our enemies were being weakened by this virus. Okay, and then why don't we do one more room, and that would be Jim, if you want to draw a room from the operating room to somewhere else, and you can describe something that you see in this room that evokes a memory.
In this room, I see it is so we've got some like futuristic and kind of robot-y type stuff going on and things like that. It is like an open bedded truck with a small cab, and it's clearly like an electric vehicle of some kind. And it's got like it's like got like a high-sided bed in the back, and the room is not so much the room as it's like the back of this truck, and there's a bunch of stuff piled up in there, kind of neatly arranged, that is clearly like salvage. Like there's a bunch of pictures that have been taken off walls, kind of like leaned up against one side of the truck. There are, there's like a nice set of, like matching chairs kind of stacked on top of each other. There's a like mahogany desk. And clearly this is, and it's not like, and the back of it is like the sides are scuffed and stuff like this, but it's clearly like it's being used to move decent stuff, not like like the bed is not like lined with trash or food wrappers or anything like that. It's like an open topped furniture truck.
Okay. And Jim, who do you want the revealer to be for you?
I can choose anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah.
Seems appropriate. Okay.
So
do we want to pause here and figure out
I
who
was
is?
gonna ask if we could pause because I don't know who to give tokens to.
Okay.
Sarah is 1. I'm 2. Ryan, you're 3. Robbie is 4. That's what I've got written down.
Correct.
Okay.
Does that match up?
Before Robbie's first scene, he said he was 3, though, so I gave his tokens to number 3.
Should we start this over and reassign tokens?
Okay, so do you want me to just reset the whole response thing, or do you remember previously who?
I remember what I gave, but I gave them to the wrong people.
Robbie, did I get that wrong?
Sarah's player 1, Jim, you're player 2, Ryan is player 3, and I'm player 4.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I have written down. So, I gave tokens to Sarah and Robbie, so I gave them to 1 and 4. So that shouldn't mess with my right. I think Ryan, we're not clear on whether you or I were 2 or 3. Is that what's going on?
Well, I thought Robbie said that he was 3, so I gave him tokens in player 3, which is actually me. It sounds like. So I broke it.
Yeah. So so Robbie, can you clear them and just have us re-enter?
Yeah, I think I can clear it, but it'll be everybody's. It'll be a complete
and
clear.
we'll just re-enter.
Okay.
I mean, we've only done 2 rounds, right?
Correct.
So.
Correct. Okay, so I go in here, and okay, so I'm deleting all responses. Okay, so we should be reset.
Excellent. So scene 1 was the claw table cybernetic arm, memories of a furniture store. So
And I'm going in to add the names.
Yeah, that's super helpful.
Can you see these going through on your side?
Yep. I saw Sarah's name just pop up. Okay. I mean, I think we'll need to refresh for them to all go in there, but I've got Sarah's name on top now.
Okay.
And then it's so scene 2 was you and Ryan, so Sarah and I should be putting karma tokens in. Okay, all right.
Oh, okay. So sorry. So it's not based on the questions.
Well, it's based on the responses, what people have said in that room.
Okay, so tokens should have been given to you, me, to everyone by now.
Nope, not me yet.
Okay.
Okay, so is everybody set? Okay, so Jim, do you want to go on and turn over the next card?
Sure.
And who's your revealer this time?
Sarah.
Okay. How do we? Can you flip that card over?
Oh, that's right. I got to put it on the play surface here. Whoop. Okay, let's try that again.
Okay, and I'll increase the size here. Okay, so Jim, you asked that first question to Sarah.
All right, what was the most exciting party experience you recall?
I think one of my clients invited me to something. It was some sort of like high society deal, like very clean and elegant, which is like not really what I'm used to. I work with like sawdust and like tools.
So I'm going to ask a clarifying question, which is, did this party happen? When did this party happen in relation to the occupation of our lands? Was it during or after this? It sounds like there was like a plague that kind of helped us throw off the yoke of our occupiers.
Mm-hmm. I think just after, and this is kind of when people are starting to, like, it was definitely a celebration. I think the mood started out kind of somber and then very quickly turned into like a fierce kind of joy. Not at all, not particularly kind because of what had happened. But this was a side of the world that I had really only seen in passing, like when I came to do consultations. And I was happy that the situation had changed. And I recognized, like, even then, that this was an important moment in history as well. And they had really nice furniture.
All right. And then, Sarah, you'll go with the second question.
What daredevil feat gave you the biggest rush?
Um, sneaking into a hospital that was used by the elite of the occupying peoples, and switching out some of their blood supply for blood that had been tainted with that disease. And then getting out without anybody knowing who I was or what I had done.
And I'm going to ask a clarifying question.
Yeah.
Who was behind that rather brave and brazen act? I mean, was it just something that you did on your own, or was there somebody else or a group that was helping you to do that?
I think there was there was absolutely an organized resistance, but it was set up in cells. So I only really knew like 4 other people that I worked with on a regular basis. And this was just a mission that got handed down to us. Like, we went to a dead drop. There were these, whatever, kind of the plastic blood bags that you put on the IV and stuff like this. And we were told, get into the hospital, swap these out. And I didn't even know what it was going to do until several days later, when despite their attempts to keep news of this out of any kind of press, word got out that there was like an epidemic just raging through that hospital, like wildfire. And then I realized what we had done.
Okay. All right, so I have about 1:15. Does this sound like a good time for we'll take a 5-7 minute break? Sound good? Okay. So one of the ironies of happy times is that a lot of times happy times aren't so happy, it turns out.
Yeah, and like, what are the unhappy rooms going to be like? This is cool though. I like, oh, just going in blank, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you don't, if you don't define the setting, if you don't define the setting ahead of time, the first, few rooms really, the people who do are the respondents in those rooms, establish a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah, and like we went in such completely opposite directions, and yet they're kind of coming together.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll have to keep in mind that the simple thing on that Google form, yeah, it just makes a lot of sense, and I, put the names out there at the beginning to kind of keep it straight.
And for the record, it took me way too long to get the pun in the name. I was just going, why is there a T in there? That's weird. And then realized it, and I hate it. It's perfect.
Same though. I was convinced for like a good 20 seconds that it had something to do with lifting weights.
Amongst our many gains will be possibly karmic reward. I don't know.
Also, I am terrible at remembering to do things. So if anyone wants to just remind me after a scene to vote.
Sarah, give out tokens.
Yeah, and sometimes, if I'm assigning the tokens, I'll go on and just bring up that form and kind of be looking at the form while I hear the other two responding to things, or at least trying to form in my mind, looking at those different attributes, what attributes seem to be in the running for what I would be assigning. Yeah. All right, so Ryan, I think it is now your turn, and you are the seeker, so you can draw us a new room and describe what you see in that room.
Sorry, I'm fighting with the technology at the moment because I want to draw a line and it does not want me to. But I will do it. And in this room, there's sort of a weathered bronze statue of someone. I mean, it must be important to us, but I don't remember what the significance is and where there should be a descriptive plaque or something. It's just completely worn away, like by sea air or time or the fact that we're in limbo. I don't know.
Okay. And then who are you going to choose as your revealer?
no, the possibilities. I'll pick Sarah again. Ha! So you don't have to allot tokens.
Wonderful. All right. So I draw the card, or you do?
No, Ryan draws the card.
I do.
Yeah.
Come on, card. Get out of my hand. There we go.
Okay, and I can increase the size here. Oops, I can. All right, so.
So, what was the nature of your relationship with your special friend or friends?
I think so. I had a lot of clients. I think like people who had held on to their position through the occupation, or possibly even occupiers who wanted to own things from this culture, from where we were. But I wouldn't call them friends. It's probably someone I knew from before, like childhood friends or something. Can I make up an NPC here, or is this meant to be? Okay.
Yeah, no, you can make up NPCs as you desire. Yeah.
I think someone who got involved in the resistance. Let's say it was Jim's character. And I think that was somehow I found out, and that was a secret I had to keep while I was interacting with a lot of dangerous people for us. But they weren't dangerous for me. But you know, you talk about some things, and there's always that worry: can they tell that I look at all nervous? Will I give you away somehow? But I think we were childhood friends. Maybe grew up nearby. Probably fell out of touch some during the occupation because it's harder to keep track of people. You were doing all your secret things. And I don't think you told me about any of it. I just knew vaguely that you were involved in something. But the speculation was almost worse because I thought maybe you're involved in everything that's going on. There was probably one instance, like I was due to deliver furniture to somebody, and it ended up they had been killed by this virus that was going around, and that was kind of the beginning of the end.
Okay. And then you asked that second question.
How many special friends did you have? And were you special to them in the same way they were special to you?
You say that word so accusatorially. I love it.
It's in quotes. I feel like I have to.
I guess it depends on how you count, and I don't know, I've always been kind of hesitant to use that word unless I know that it's mutual. I guess maybe I'm never sure if I was as special to them as they were to me. But I had some problems with integrating my tech. It didn't always work quite right. I got some bad reactions, and there was this group of people who also had similar issues. And I don't know, it was nice seeing them. It mattered to me in a way that I think it mattered to them too, but I guess you can never really be sure.
Okay, then that would take us back to Sarah for the next room.
Robbie again?
Okay.
Oh, you haven't done anything in a while, have you?
Yeah, and so Ryan asked if we're still in happy times. That there are the decks have 18 cards. There's a total of 4 of those cards that are passage cards that give us access to other levels. I think for the purpose, I mean, odds are we're going to hit one of those pretty soon since we haven't already done so. I think in the interest of time, why don't we say this? Once we've been around once, which we have currently done, why don't we say if at that point anybody wants to move on to another level, they can do so. You know, and if the way the game is set up right now, it would be you wait for a passage card to emerge before you have that option. But why don't we just say at this point, so Sarah, you can keep us on happy times and we can continue with that. Or if you want to move us to a different deck, we can go that route.
Sure, let's move us.
Okay, so if you want to move on, then what you would do is you roll the dice again, or the die, the 6-sided die. And what did you get?
Oops. Oh, oops, I just rolled a bunch of times. My last one was a 6.
What was the first one?
I think a 1.
Okay, so let's just go with that. And that would be things and senses. So if you want to go on and draw a line, and then while you're doing that, I will get out our things and senses deck. Things and senses. And I go shuffle this. So it should be shuffled. Yeah, and so we're going to the new level, but it basically is the same. You'll draw a room here and describe something that's in the room.
There is, the room itself is a portion of part of the public, like the city square. And there are debris across it, bits of paper, rocks. There's like a single shoe. think it's cobblestone. There's a kind of pedestal in the middle, but there's nothing on it. Very gray.
Okay.
Can I draw a card?
Yes, you'll draw a card. There it is. I'll expand it.
And this is me asking you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What is an image that you can never forget?
So the image I can never forget, and it's been triggered by both this city square that we see in front of us, as well as by that bronze statue that we saw in the previous room. I remember that when we were finally starting to overthrow this, set of overlords that had been kind of brutalizing us, that symbolically, one of the things that happened was that we moved into the city square where they had put a statue of one of their heroes that was in our city square, and it was always kind of a blight for us, kind of having to look at it because it was a sign of their rule. But I remember the toppling and removal of that statue, and I remember that I myself was part of the group that did that. That I was like there on the square helping to kind of bring down this bronze statue that had previously stood on a pedestal. And my question to you is, what is a smell that you wish you could remember?
Outside the city that we live in, they used to grow up fields of wildflowers. And they burn those to the ground. Nothing grows there anymore. But I remember walking through those as a kid. And I remember, like, I can describe it.
Oh. Wait a minute. Wait. Sorry about that.
Like, I could tell you what it smelled like, but that would just be saying that it smelled like wildflowers. And that doesn't really mean anything. And sometimes now in the world as it is, I just want to be there again with that smell.
Okay, and then that would make it my turn. So, oh. Okay, in this room, I see a small bin on wheels that has reclaimed debris. But this is not like the furniture or some of those other items that we see. These are kind of like high-tech parts that I see on this one. So it looks like things that have been reclaimed, but things that were reclaimed from kind of high-tech equipment. So, I mean, circuitry and kind of titanium metals and things of that sort that are on this bin. And I'm going to have, let's see, Jim, I will have you as the revealer this time. And my card, which I'll make a little bigger here. What object caused strife between you and someone close to you?
A pamphlet, like an old school, like printed pamphlet, like a leaflet. That was like a propaganda leaflet from the occupiers, that they just leave these, they like leave these things around all over town. Like any store you walked into, there was a little display where you could take one and it would, extol the benefits of, maybe it was even it might have even had a thing like an application you could fill out to join the occupying military or something like that. And I think my mother found this, and I would carry these. I would carry one around in my pocket all the time, half filled out, so that if I got stopped by like not half filled out, actually probably completed, so that if I got stopped or whatever and I got patted down, they'd find this thing and I could say, yeah, I was on my way to the the recruitment center right now or whatever. And I basically carried it around as cover. But my not my mother, my aunt who I lived with found it, whatever, like in my coat or something like that. And basically what was not ashamed of me or angry at me, but just scared that I was gonna go that I was going to go off and leave her and get caught up and, put a target on my back by taking sides and stuff like this. And so that pamphlet that I carried around with me all the time caused strife between me and my aunt who I lived with.
Okay, and then you can ask that question back to me. You're muted.
What object brought you and someone estranged back together?
Okay, so I've told you about the fact that I had this accident that kind of ruined my arm, but that I then had this kind of new artificial arm that I was replaced. Well, I mean, that was used to replace my one arm, and this kind of I mean, it did give me. It was tremendously strong and was extremely useful to me. And I know that this kind of equipped me to, I mean, I wasn't like a military person, but I would, because of some of my ability along with the special strength that I had, this kind of, when I was building machinery and things like that was sometimes used for the military. It gave me a leg up on others. And this, even though I was from humble origins, this kind of, I got some preferential treatment. Everybody kind of treated me as special because of the this kind of cyborg implant type thing that I received. I do remember, though, I mean, that this caused me some pain because it estranged me from my humble origins. And I do remember that I was able, through my dealings, to sometimes come across valuable items that had been left behind by other people. And I remember one time I was able to scavenge some particularly nice pieces of furniture and some particularly nice, elegant clothing that some of the elite were kind of discarding. And I was able to kind of get those items and bring them back to some people who were dear to me. And as part of like a kind of showing that I hadn't forgotten them. And so that, so it was like these objects that I was able to sometimes bring back to them that helped to, at least in my mind, kind of show that I was still thinking about them and still held them dear. Okay, and then Jim, you will be next up on the.
And so here's a question about the rooms. Do they necessarily have to keep coming off of the ones we've already done, or could we do it off of a different?
I think generally the passages go off of the ones that we have done.
Got it.
It's a little easier when you're doing face-to-face and have the poster board, because people will draw all sorts of interesting outlines for their rooms and things like that. But
yeah, yeah, because then you can make it like I could have made mine look like a truck and stuff like that if I wanted.
Correct.
To make it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just drew a regular box.
Yeah.
off the bottom there.
And what do you see? What do you see in this room?
Oh, and this is what do we see here? It's a like a tactical military uniform. Kind of neatly folded and laid out. Oh, you know what? Maybe it's a row of lockers. And each of the lockers has just a like instead of like a handle or something, it's just got a little pad on it, and you know that you just put your thumb there, and it takes your thumbprint, and that's how you open it up. And one of them is kind of swung open, and you know, kind of there's like a shelf that has a helmet that is like, you know, like a very militaristic looking, like, you know, curved smoked glass face shield, so that you can kind of see, you can just see a silhouette of, there is someone behind it, but you can't make out their features. And it's got, you know, and there's like a some kind of a like body armor thing with like a turtleneck that goes up to, you know, under the where the, you know, the helmet comes down, and pants that have like, you know, like hard knee pads built into them and stuff like this, and big thick boots with steel toes, kind of, you know, neatly unlaced on the you know, set on the floor of that locker. And like on one side there's like a baton that has like little kind of like Tesla coil looking things coming off of it, and just a, you know, a thumb switch that you can clearly toggle. You know, either you like clearly you can use it to just wail on people if that's what you want to, but there's a switch that lets it, you know, get juiced up somehow, maybe cattle prod style or something like that, you know, and that's there. And but on the door there is a like a sheet of like there are half a dozen pictures of like from like clearly like it's like just a regular sheet of paper run through like a color printer, not like a like glossy magazine photo or even like a Polaroid or anything like that, but just like a paper, like just cut out of a piece of paper, of like a young woman, pregnant, clearly a member of this the culture, or the, you know, or the you know, clearly from the culture of the occupiers, but just smiling, kind of showing off her baby bump, and a picture of a sailboat, and a picture of like a little like a cabin on a lake and stuff like this. And you know, and the, you know, the picture of the woman, the pregnant woman, just says "Stay safe, I love you" on it.
Okay, and who is your revealer going to be?
I'll have it be Ryan, because we haven't done a scene together yet. And then am I picking the card or is Ryan picking the card?
So you pick the card, Jim.
Okay, all right, cool. So here we go. Draw. Card. It's a passage.
Okay. Yeah, and with the passage, it's since we're doing a kind of a quick version, normally what would happen with the passage is you would put a P in that room. We would put like just a letter P to kind of indicate that the passage was available, and then the next person or any subsequent person, like Jim, you wouldn't be able to use the passage immediately. You're actually going to now draw another card. Like, so the person who gets the passage immediately just puts a P in the card. It's like, okay, anybody subsequent to you, including yourself, if it comes around, can move to the next level. But yeah, so you would just go on and draw another card, and I will make this bigger. And so you will ask that question, Jim, to Ryan.
Ryan, what was a taboo you broke, and how did that event make you feel?
Sorry, I'm still thinking because I've got nothing for this. I'm trying to figure out what taboos our thing even has.
Yeah, and I think
okay, I know. So, I wasn't entirely honest before when I said that I just had some natural glitches with my implants. Some of those probably were avoidable because it's sort of understood that these are inherently part of you, much like our fellow here and his arm, and they should remain with you after death, and it's a lot cheaper if you can get salvage. So mine were definitely taken from someone who didn't have a use for them anymore, or at least didn't have a way to indicate that they wanted them. And I suppose I feel a little bit of regret over that, largely because they don't work quite right. And maybe if I'd gone through proper channels would have worked, but maybe I wouldn't have actually gotten anything. And I don't know, I suppose if I was in the same position, I would have tried it again.
And I'd like to ask a clarifying question.
Yes.
So what do you recall being the specific nature of your implants that you had?
Well, the visible portion of it is an eye, but it extends further into some of my brain tissue, which is part of why it was difficult to find in the first place.
Okay, and then Ryan, you would ask that question back to Jim.
What was an experience that caused you to feel a sense of awesome mystery?
Wait, I think that that about a week after that incident, like that they quarantined the hospital and locked it down, and weren't letting anybody in or out and stuff like this. I snuck in and I walked around and I just saw the, like, um like every there were maybe a few people that were still alive, but they were like, just like laid out in beds, probably hours away from death. Like they're being kept alive by the fact that they had been plugged into IVs and instruments and stuff like this before the hospital before anybody that was still healthy just left and abandoned the place. And my immunity to what did all of them in, just walking around through the aftermath of that, it wasn't at the time, I think it wasn't that I had a hand in it. It was that something so random and capricious was the thing that was gonna end this. That it was like one little chromosome in the wrong place, one of our ancestors 10 generations ago coming down with a version of this and then passing it down to us, so that we were completely unaffected by it, but it devastated these people, our tormentors, was like for an for someone who the experience of the occupation had made into a kind of confirmed, like, hardcore atheist. This sudden turn of events really was a major shock to the system, and walking around seeing all of it just so manifest in one place was awesome and mysterious and scary and weird.
Okay, and that then will take us to, I think it's Ryan's turn next. And so Ryan, you can we can stay with this level, or since we have the passage card that was revealed, we can move to a new level.
I'm gonna use the passage.
Okay, so if you use the passage, then you would roll a 6-sided dice, and I'll go to my chart. Just tell me what you rolled.
6.
You lose your turn. The bizarre architecture of Limbo has left you disoriented, and so the play will then go to Sarah. And so Sarah, you have the same option. You can either roll a die to go to a new level, or if you want to stay on Things and Senses, you can stay there.
Okay, so we haven't moved up to the next level then?
We're still on Things and Senses because we got kind of lost and turned around, and Ryan has us back in the same room again.
All right, I will roll. Yes.
Okay. Tell me what you got.
3.
Okay, so this would be places near and far. And so I will go put up that, and then you can just draw a new room onto the map and describe something that's in that room. Oh, I like that.
All right. Sorry, can you make this bigger?
Make the figure bigger.
The card that I just drew.
Okay. Yeah, and also describe something that's in that room.
Yeah, right. It is a couch, but like not. This isn't anything that I would ever have worked with. It's worn. It's upholstered in this sort of rusty orange corduroy. And there are places where like it's been torn open just a little bit, and you can see the cushions inside, and like those have come open too, and there's like little bits of fluff and things coming out. There's a couple like embroidered pillows though that are quite a bit nicer on it.
And who do you want the revealer to be?
Let's go with Ryan because you missed your turn. And I asked the first one?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Where were you when you experienced your first romantic kiss?
So it was near in like the square, there was a statue there. I can't remember who or what it was of. I probably knew at some point, but it didn't matter. But I remember coming back years later and seeing it had been torn down, and I don't know, it seemed fitting somehow, given how long that relationship lasted. Where were you when your heart was first broken? Oh, yeah, sure. It's a statue the occupiers put up that later got broken down, and I kissed somebody by it. But the question stands.
How long has the occupation gone on? Have we decided that? Nope. Okay. So this was slightly after the occupation had really taken hold and the city was starting to change, or we were starting to like really feel the changes, that there might be permanent. And I was in a restaurant or a cafe near the city square. And I saw them bringing things out of the houses that they had taken over. And I realized how much we were going to lose here. All this history, this the things too, because those matter. Memories are attached to them. They become part of people's lives. And I realized what I would have to do and keep doing to make sure that as little of it was lost as possible. And that sort of that realization that I have to compromise myself in that way, I think broke my heart.
Okay. I think it's now my turn. So let me draw. Okay, in this room, I see a I see a bird cage with a parrot in it. And it reminds me, I don't know if it's the same one, but it reminds me of a pet that I had kept where I lived. And I remember that I would, I thought it was funny to kind of, the parrot could repeat words. And I remember that I would enjoy giving the parrot a kind of colorful language, let us say, with the phrases that I would give it. And I'm going to have Ryan, since we skipped your turn, I'll go on and give you a second chance at the as being my my revealer as well. So I'm going to flip this. Wait, I got to flip this card over, and I'll make it bigger. So Ryan, my question is, what distant person became very close to you?
So it's kind of macabre, I suppose, but I eventually ran into someone who had an implant salvaged from the same person. I mean, they malfunctioned in similar ways, so we could kind of figure out that maybe it had been an issue with that person's deck and not just how it was integrated into me or whatever. But I mean, normally you wouldn't want to keep a close association with someone who did the same kind of ooky illegal shit as you. But we ended up kind of stayed in touch, and I think they're probably actually eventually my best friend, which seems weird to say that we were united by you know like carving up another person, but yeah, weird things bring people together. What person who was close to you became very distant?
Um, it was my older sister, and yeah, the occupiers were always looking for members of our society who would be, well, I mean, both administrators for them as well as spies for them. And I remember discovering that my sister had started to do some um, intelligence work for the occupiers. I found out because I mean, she started acting suspicious, and um, I didn't know what was going on with her. So I actually I noticed that she would kind of go out of the house some days during certain odd times, and would sometimes be gone for a few hours. And I remember surreptitiously following her out of the house one day when she left to see what was up. And I saw that she was kind of nervous and was taking like rather kind of meandering, kind of strange, uh, uh, strange route that she was taking. But eventually, she wound up at one of the government offices run by the occupiers, and um, I don't know exactly what the extent of her spy work was, but I know that she was like starting to establish contact with the occupiers. And I didn't directly confront her, but from that point on, our relationship became increasingly cold and distant. Okay, and then that would take us to Jim. I think it's your turn now for the next room.
All right, let's see what we got here. The room that we are in has a it's long but narrow, but it's like a sidewalk. It looks like a like a ferroconcrete like slab sidewalk. And there are brightly colored caricatures of whomever, like the spokesman's like main spokesperson is. He's a like handsome man in his like mid-30s, from their like kind of the epitome of whatever they consider, the kind of masculine appeal in their culture, wearing a whatever suit it is that would normally be worn by like someone in their government. And there are like children's drawings in brightly colored chalk of like scenes of like him. So scenes of like him with like, there's like a picture of him and he's standing there like this, and there's like a word balloon coming out of his mouth that says blah, 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 I'm right. And there's like a dog peeing on his leg. And there's like another one of him saying blah, 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 I'm right. And there's like a, someone is like, there's like a garbage can being, like over his head with like garbage about to fall on his head, and just like kind of children's drawings of this in colored chalk on the sidewalk.
So you pick a revealer and then you can draw a card.
Robbie, I don't think you and I have done a scene in a little while, so let's do that. And card says, draw one. Bam. Can you blow that up for me? All right, so in your earliest memory, what do you remember seeing?
All right, I remember my earliest memory is a painful one. Going back to my childhood, I can remember a time when my sister and I had been dropped off at some family friends. And I remember that my sister and our parents were going off on a vacation and were just going to leave us with these family friends for a few days. I remember they had left. The next morning, my sister and I were out on a swing set, and we were having a good time swinging. And I remember through a kind of fluke that I had kind of leaned off to the side of my swing and smacked it onto one of the metal bars, and it knocked me out. And I remember then coming to, and I was bleeding. And I remember my sister being there to kind of console me and to help me out, but I had to be kind of taken to a hospital to get my first stitches that I ever had were as a result of that. So that was my memory. And my question to you, where were you when you died?
You know what? I think I was just out on the street. I was going for a walk. I was going to maybe even going to visit one of you. Um uh um and someone came up behind me uh and just shanked me. Just like stabbed an ice pick through my spine and like paralyzed me from the chest down like instantly, and I just collapsed down on the sidewalk. And they left me there, and I just bled out on the sidewalk. And I was like, you know, and I think this may even been a thing where like a couple of people stepped over me because they thought that I was just a, that it wasn't their problem or something like that. And and I just yeah, I just bled out on the sidewalk.
Okay, and then that's going to take us to Ryan. Just in terms of our time right now, I think what I might want to do is I'd like to try to end us close to 3 o'clock. If it would be okay, why don't we have Ryan go with his turn, and then I'll just go on somewhat prematurely, enter us into the final phase of the game, which has to do with the weighing. What we could do is do Ryan. I think we could take a quick little like 5-minute break, and then we could do the final kind of weighing part of the game and have a little bit of time, hopefully, for a little debriefing, if that's okay.
That sounds perfect.
Okay. So Ryan.
Sorry, making sure I've actually got the right window up and can draw on it without ruining everything. I was going to try to be creative, but I realized that all I could think of to draw was, oh, my goodness, that was not what I intended to do. Now there's a giant squiggle. Go away, would you? Not you, to the cat who was attempting to play the game for me. Da, da, da. The biggest box. And in this room, I think in this room we have not even a full one, just like a little portion kind of jutting into the room like it doesn't belong there, but it's clipped into the geometry of the world somehow. Couple headstones and a little bit of grass that's not quite aligned and everything, and it's clearly from a cemetery that the occupiers themselves would use, not one of our regular ones. It just kind of at various points jutting in, like it doesn't quite align with the room itself. Oh, and I've got to draw a card.
Yeah, and pick also a revealer.
Who hasn't gotten? I think everybody's been covered this time around. Only. I'm going, oh, I would check and see who was even, except that I can't see who's gotten all the tokens. So I'll pick Sarah, because I'm sure you'll do something creepy weird.
Yeah, so, and I'll make that larger for you. Yeah, I gotta get my right tool here. Okay.
What was the place you went to in secret, and why did you need to hide this from others?
I think I went to that graveyard because when like some of the people that I sold furniture to were occupiers, and like I also did restoration work, and I think I built a coffin for someone, and that was the graveyard that they put it in. And it was probably some of the best work that I've done. And I'm still not sure how I feel about that. But I had to keep it secret. Because it was one of the occupier cemetery, and like if people saw me going there, it wouldn't work out well. Like I know people who are in the resistance. It looks bad. It looks weird. And I'm also just trying to figure out how I feel about this situation because I've not been cooperating, but I've been interacting with them in friendly ways. And even if the reasons that I started out doing that are because I wanted to preserve things and save them, that's kind of gotten more complicated over the course of the occupation because it's been years. And how do you do that every day and not let it become a part of who you are? What is a place where you wish you could have spent more time?
Honestly, here, I mean, I recognize my parents' headstones clipping into the room, and I never did go visit them much as I ought to, and especially not afterward. They probably would have been ashamed of me for doing what I needed to. But I mean, again, I suppose it doesn't matter what they think, given that they're dead, and you don't want to get too hung up on personifying corpses when you're also helping yourself to their bits. Not that I'd take theirs. That's a little bit too far. That's too creepy for me. But yeah, I guess I wish that I had been a better child, more of what they wanted.
Question.
Yeah.
Did they die before, during, or after the occupation?
I think during.
Did they know you took your cybernetics from a corpse?
They were mercifully dead at the time. Although, if they weren't, maybe I would have had some more resources. I think part of the reason I haven't been back is that I wouldn't begrudge anyone for taking things from them, but I don't really want to know.
Okay. So if it's okay, why don't we take another 5 minute little break and we'll come back and we'll hopefully go through the final weighing and have a few little final thoughts about the game. Does that sound good? Okay. Okay, so the way the game will wrap up is if you go to that Google document, there's a page that says Karmic Universe Descriptions. And we have different options. And what we try to do is to look at those different possibilities and determine from what has been revealed during the game what we feel is the kind of moral universe that we were inhabiting. So there's the hedonism, angelic, diabolic, warrior, proletariat, antinomian, the yin yang, and a kind of failsafe, which is the existentialist ludic option.
We definitely had a moral system here.
Yeah, I think so. And sometimes it helps to just kind of eliminate ones where we just say that just clearly does not fit.
Hedonism.
Yeah, does not fit. I would agree. I think diabolic does not seem to fit for me.
I don't think yin and yang either. Probably not existentialist, ludic.
No, I mean, partly because of just the cultural setup. Proletariat makes some sense to me.
Antinomian would too, for me. Mm-hmm. Maybe even warrior.
Yeah, I was looking at proletariat and warrior going, those both seem somewhat appropriate. Maybe angelic, maybe antinomian. Definitely not yin yang.
Yeah, Jim, what do you think?
Warrior and proletariat seem to be the things that kind of the setting sort of brought to the fore in our descriptions of what we were doing and what was going on. And I kind of like that those can be the karmic principles, but that we didn't necessarily all, hew, like some of us may have hewed more closely to them than others. And we can also, use that kind of, yeah, it sure seemed like proletariat was that kind of seemed to be the guiding thing for me. Either that or antinomian. There was a lot of us talking about like there's a lot of interiority in the discussions that we had here. And so this is just like a consensus, kind of a consensus discussion, or do we take a vote? What is the...
Well, yeah, first of all would be, can we achieve consensus? If we can't achieve consensus, then we put it up to a vote. I mean, since we had those kind of overlords, right? The proletariat, which is kind of specifically kind of going against the hierarchic values of despots and theocrats and such, makes sense. I mean, the warrior, especially with that emphasis on the community, seemed important to us.
Now, is this a karmic system for the world at large or just our characters?
It's kind of both, I would say.
It's like the culture we were living in, essentially, right?
Yeah.
I think warrior might be slightly more applicable, like taking into account that one of us could potentially have been one of the occupiers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
Okay.
I'll buy that.
Ryan, are you okay with okay? So the warrior. So I then have a formula sheet that I go to, and I must say the Google form makes this so much easier because when we play it on the tabletop, initially it was like we had all these tokens, and then you had these bags, and you had like a ton of tokens, and we're trying to figure it out. Whereas the Google sheet makes this easier. So I might put your simple addition skills to work. So with the warrior, and the way these sheets work is there are within this universe, there are good tokens to have and there are bad tokens to have right now. And so I'm going to start with Sarah, and I'm going to give you how many points you get for the good tokens. The good tokens for the warrior are bravery, fervor, pride, loyalty, justice, and diligence. And what you're trying to do is to get more good tokens than bad tokens, okay, within this particular system. So Sarah, you have on bravery and fervor, there were 0. Pride, you had 3. And loyalty, 0. Justice, 0. And diligence, you had 2. So that's the good, which is 5. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then evil, the tenderness is 3. Patience, 1.
A little bit slower. Patience. Okay.
You had 1 patience. Humility, you had 4. Mercy, you had 0. Caution, 1. And cunning, you had 0.
That is 4, 5, 6, 7, 10.
Okay. So you would presumably not survive the weighing, fortunately. Jim, you had, these are your positive tokens. You had 3 for bravery, 2 for fervor, 0 for pride, 1 for loyalty, 2 for justice, and you had 1 for diligence. So those are your positive ones. Do you have that?
Sorry, no. Should I have been? Was I supposed to be like jotting that down or something?
Yeah, well, we should add them up. So you had 3 bravery plus 2 for fervor, so that would give you 5. 0 pride, that's 5. Loyalty, 1, so that gives you 6. 2 justice, which would give you 8, and 9 diligence. So you have you end up having 9 on the positive side, and on the negative side you had 0 tenderness, 0 patience, humility, you had 1, mercy 0, caution 2, so that would give you 3, and cunning you had 4, so that gives you 7. So you would survive the weighing under the warrior system.
I'm in.
And then Ryan, you had 1 for bravery plus 0 for fervor plus 0 for pride plus 2 for loyalty, so you're up to 3. 0 for justice, and diligence, you had 3. So does that give you, was that 6?
Yeah, I got 6.
Okay, 6 on that side. And then on the negative for tenderness, you had 4. Patience, you had 1. It's 4, 5. Humility, You had 2, which would be 7. Mercy, 1, 8. Caution, 1, 9. And cunning, 1 is 10. So you would.
I have -4.
And then I had 3 bravery, 3 fervor, so that gives me 6. Pride, I had 4, which is 10. Loyalty, I had 5, which is 15. Wow. Justice, I had 1, which is 16. And diligence, I had 2, so 18. And tenderness, I had 0. Patience, 2. Humility, 1. 3. Mercy, 0. Caution, 1. 4. And cunning, 1. 5. So I would have survived the weighing. And so there's not, I mean, insofar as there's a winner or anything, it's just like, do you survive? Does your character survive the weighing or not, according to that karmic universe and the way that, right, the kind of formula works out with respect to the tokens that you receive during the course of the game. And that's the judgment that is passed on to the characters then. And what the afterlife holds for us, whether we win or lose, who's to say? That I guess would be the subject of the sequel to Waiting Rooms, is the afterlife after that. So that's essentially how the game operates. And I mean, even though in some ways we didn't get through all of the levels of Limbo, I think it was a pretty good sense of how things operate. And I'd say on my side, I definitely, I mean, every time I play it, I kind of am picking up on things. And certainly this time with it being online for the first time, I was learning all sorts of things about, how that works and what I can do to improve the experience when it's not in a face-to-face situation. But, I would be, happy to just go around and to get your reaction to both how it's operating online, as well as just the game itself, and what your thoughts are with respect to the game and with respect to the experience.
So I don't know if you've heard or played the interactive fiction game Pascal's Wager, but this reminded me of it a lot, because in that one you start off knowing what god is most commonly worshipped in society around you and whether or not you actually follow that one. And at the end, it tells you, plot twist, all along, the one true god has been Hanuman. Have you done what he wants? And if you've been living according to, Tenjin's principles, then ta-da, you lose. And at the end I was going, so we've been working so hard, and then we find out what karmic universe we're in. And I felt almost like it would have been sort of appropriate and sort of hilarious if in the end it's yin-yang. None of us lived our lives in balance. We all lose.
Yeah. Now, Pascal's Wager, is it a computer game or?
Yeah, it's a interactive fiction game, text adventure style.
Okay.
Again, I'm not sure if it's good or not, so much as that I remember that being a mechanic that stuck out to me.
Uh-huh.
For actual mechanical stuff here, I'd probably take out the lost turn one, just because losing a turn is the least interesting thing that can ever happen in a game.
Mm-hmm.
I won't play a game if I know it's got lose a turn as a mechanic. It's why I don't. Yeah. I played like 2 games of Savage Worlds, and a big part of that is like that's a much more crunchy trad game,
mm-hmm.
and a big part of that is like, if you like the way they handle like damage is like you get bonked, and if you can't make a roll, then you lose your turn. I hate that with the white hot passion of 1,000 Suns. Just losing a turn is super lame, especially because the P card there is supposed to be like a cool special thing that you get to use.
Mm-hmm.
Then just having it be wah, wah, wah. Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
That's the only thing where I was really like, oh, this sucks.
Uh-huh.
It'd work a lot better to me if it meant that you continue on the current level or something, because as it was like, so I've waited for it to come around, and I guess I'll just sit here.
Yeah.
And it felt like it's discouraging you to try to explore more of Lima.
Correct. Or you could turn it into a positive thing where, you know, you get to then just select what
you can do whatever you want with it as long as it's not lose a turn. Is I think, you know, because not only does that blow for the person who loses the turn, but it puts tremendous social pressure on the couple of people that follow after, as we witnessed, to then have that person that lost the turn be the person that they have the scene with, whether they really wanted to do that or not, because they feel so shitty that that person lost a turn.
Yeah, when you kind of explained it at the beginning, I kind of assumed that it'd be, oh, okay, trigger, and then we get to draw another card. Which...
Yeah, lose a turn sucks.
Yeah, it just... I see a lot of stuff, especially in PBTA spaces, about how on a roll, the worst thing that can happen is so you fail and nothing happens from there. And a step below that is so you fail and you can't try anything again. Just go sit in the corner.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, the idea is that, like, I think generally, a die roll should do something, good or bad, but, you know, that it shouldn't be just like, oh, nothing, you know, happens.
It doesn't have to be good or bad. It can just be like a nudge to expand things in a particular direction.
Right.
You know, like it seems to me that the point of that P thing is, if we kind of get, it's a nice thing where if we get in a rut of like doing the same kinds of rooms, or we get, because the thing that I could see happening in this game that didn't necessarily happen in ours, but very much I have seen happen in these kinds of like sort of peel away the onion type of games where we start not knowing who we are, but then we're making connections and stuff, is that one of the traps you can fall into is like, I do a thing and I describe a scene, and then the next person goes, oh yeah, and then they do a scene that takes place immediately after that and builds right on it, and then the person after that, and then we end up doing something that is much more like we're doing just an extended scene from a regular role-playing game. And so that is a good way to kind of nudge you out of that if you fall into that rut. It's a way to kind of mechanically and also just kind of force you to change gears now and then and try other stuff. But it doesn't need to be like, there doesn't need to be a bad option. Like it's not a, you know, it's not a board game. So
right.
Yeah, just interesting. Not bad.
Yeah. 666 interesting options is all you need.
I think I personally would appreciate just like a tiny little step, like mark down your numbers.
Oh, what at the end?
Yeah, at the end of each scene, because I'm worried that I missed some and I just do not remember.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I gave them to everybody, but I don't know, and none of you can prove if I did or not.
Just a prompt. That's the end of the scene. Sarah and Jim, mark your numbers.
Yep.
Right.
And don't mention Ryan, but Ryan needs the reminder.
Well, we're assuming Ryan and Robbie were in that scene, so. But yeah, and and I think it's probably more necessary than it is online than it would be if we were all sitting across from each other and we had our little grid. And man, if you're playing this at a table, I would not be jerking around with tokens. I would just have a piece of graph paper or or even just a legal pad, and or like just do some sheets that have blanks for players 1 through 5, and then the and whatever, and then the the things across the grid or something, and just have people fill them in as they
well
as
and
they
actually the last time I played this face to face, we actually for the karma tokens use the online Google form, which makes things so nice, really.
Sure.
I mean, because it keeps track of everything. The problem is, I think when I do it, okay, so the original version, we had the tokens, but you would like get off, when you were assigning tokens, you would get up from the table and go to a side table and then in the bags put the stuff. And that I mean it had positives and negatives, but I think part of it is like, you would kind of lose track of like, okay, who should I be assigning the tokens for? The problem with having the computer at the table is that now I play with high school students a lot of times and they get distracted with the computer. I think what I'm going to do for face to face the next time is give everybody a notepad or grid, but then actually have them get up to the computers. I don't like the idea of having the computers at the table in a face to face if it's going to be a distraction, but it definitely facilitates the assigning of tokens and certainly makes it much easier to kind of calculate at the end, as opposed to like fumbling with a bunch of tokens.
I did like how filling it in and then refreshing the form meant that I could never quite remember what I'd assigned people in the past. So
yeah,
I wasn't
that's kind of
weighting
cool.
it
Yep.
one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise I probably would have gone, oh no, I've given Sarah so many independence tokens. I should give her some justice to even it out. I don't know, I'm just picking words here. But I can't remember what I gave to Sarah at any point. So they were all blank slate.
Yeah, I also really liked that we didn't know what we got assigned either.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Agreed on that. Yeah. That we're not keeping score as we go.
Right. And I think, within your responses, you could try to get yourself. I mean, if you were so inclined to say, oh, I want to get some.
Well, that's the tricky thing, though, isn't it? Because we don't even know through the entire game what we're working toward.
You're right. So you don't quite know what tokens are getting assigned to you. But even if you did know, you're not really sure how that's all going to shake out.
Yeah. Have you found that when people play to a certain outcome, that the karmic system that is chosen generally aligns with that? Like, do they force it? Or in playing that way?
People generally have not played that way. I think what I kind of want to do in a play test is maybe get some people to say, okay, in advance, we're going to try to do that to see what happens. I mean, in the play test thus far, I mean, and they've been radically different types of stories. And sometimes there are real antagonisms and conflicts that are going on between the characters. Sometimes the characters are clearly in the same society, but are leading very parallel lives with each other. But, all the playtests thus far really have been, people have just been kind of intrigued by the idea of we're building a story and there are all these pieces that are kind of being put out there that we can latch onto at different points to kind of weave them together.
Yeah, I kind of wish we'd done that a little more.
Yeah, I would like to see those questions point us at each other a little more.
Like those objects too in the rooms, like they were there, and some of them got brought in, the statue and the city square.
Because and like if every so let me start by asking you a question. A lot of game designers, when they do play tests, are testing stuff and not necessarily interested in hearing from players. Here's my idea for your game that you've been working on for months that I just played for an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. So I'm always very cautious to kind of like offer a suggestion. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm fine with suggestions, and I'm also just interested in the experience. Like, what was this experience like as well?
Like it feels like there are relatively minor tweaks you can make that point us more at each other. Mm-hmm. Because if every scene has two people in it anyway, and we name those people at the beginning of the scene, it's super easy for someone to put something in the room and then have the other player add a detail to it.
Mm-hmm.
So like my sidewalk with the kids' drawings on it, whoever I was in the scene with, they then add a detail to that. Or, you know, Sarah's table with
like
the
a paint the scene sort of thing.
yeah. So that's the thing that sets it there, and then the other player adds a detail, and then that gives you, then there's some connective tissue there, as opposed to just being this kind of sequential series of little snapshots, which is fine. That's like, I love these emergent fiction games, so you know I will always like grade them on a pretty generous curve. So I had a good time. I really enjoyed that. One of the other things that is very true about these emergent fiction games is the people that go in the first couple of 3 turns have a lot of power
Mm-hmm.
to determine what's going on in the world. And I don't know whether that's necessarily good, necessarily bad, or totally indifferent, but it is something that is true that
Right.
could so like I think maybe a discussion. Well, it's interesting because you said at the beginning of the game, I don't want to go Gonzo, and then like 1 turn in, you gave yourself a bionic arm.
Mm-hmm.
Which is in the minds of some people might be Gonzo. It turned out to not be, because it was all about like, you know, prosthetics and you know, being attached to what was really you and not you, and constructing identity and stuff like that. So it turned out to be really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But like maybe a more explicit discussion about I don't know whether it's necessary or not. I like actually, Ryan and Sarah, I'm really curious how you feel about that, because like that struck me that you said, well, I don't want to go too Gonzo with it, and then you were like, and I've got this super cool bionic arm, and so
Yeah.
like I was like,
Bionic.
oh, okay, cool. I wouldn't have thought to like put something like that in, but if the Gonzo bar is just like total wackadoo, then that gives us more leeway.
I mean, Gonzo to me says more like lasers and feelings. That's sort of just everywhere flying cars and just like madcap sort of things. And it did surprise me when you said you had a bionic arm. But then, like, that sort of became one of the major focal points of the story too, in this technology. Oh, I like the way that it turned out. I don't think it was a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't think of cybernetic arms as being inherently Gonzo. I more in line with Sarah, the Gonzo being when it gets kind of goofy and big and cartoonish almost.
Sure, talking ducks and whatever. So okay.
Yeah, because I mean, I kind of liked, you know, for me, there was this, yeah, kind of cybernetic thing going on, but then it was also like this world that seemed very real too. I mean, it was, you know, this, you know, we had, you know, kind of carved furniture and stuff like that. That was like, you know, and that the kind of reclamation, not just of you know, high tech stuff, but just also kind of clothing and furniture and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it was really like, that's one of the reasons I love these kind of games, is that like Sarah authored that table as the first thing, and that could have been that could have been Game of Thrones, it could have been, you know, Brooklyn in 2018, and it could have been, you know, some cyberpunk, you know, dystopian, you know, kind of war fiction, which is what it turned out to be. But like, she did that thing that didn't really lock us down.
Mm-hmm.
But then you authored a thing that really that like suddenly really kind of dialed us into, you know, a particular I guess I don't know that I want to say genre necessarily, but a kind of a but that was a very specific thing. I liked it. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, and I don't feel like putting us into a particular time period, whatever. It's just a choice that is made, and we can make different choices at any step, or if we play this game again. So yeah, I mean, that's just the way it happens sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that tracks a lot with my experience with For the Queen, where it'll have kind of a vague shape, and then someone will immediately say something that means, oh, I know where we are and what's going on now. And from there, it kind of gels around it. So I feel like if we don't establish a setting at first, that's sort of inevitable, that someone's got to put a hand out there and say, but here is our genre.
Yeah.
Let's go with it.
Yep. And that's and like I said, that's I don't think that's not a criticism, but it is an observation about a thing that I found really interesting about our first kind of go around the table.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the online play, I am as I was saying at the beginning, I'm by no means like an expert with manipulating the technology. And I know that we were kind of struggling a little bit with like, okay, we got to draw this out. I'm wondering with like online play, I mean, I need to have something like Roll20 to do the decks and stuff like that. And it took me, I was before this completely really new to Roll20. So like just figuring out how to get my custom decks in there and stuff like that. For online play, is the mapping out of Limbo, is that a good thing? I mean, you could go more just mental space and have like on the Roll20 could just do it with the chat. Like we're going to just be typing along and we won't necessarily work on the visual thing.
I like having the visuals because I could look back and see what we'd established, because sometimes I was forgetting, like, have we done a full round? What were they talking about a room or two ago? Because my working memory doesn't exist. So it helped. And as you were saying that, I was going, well, you could make decks and roll for your party and roll there and then have like a Google drawing, but that would just be farming it out to more applications. It wouldn't be a better way of doing it. So Roll20 is probably the best workaround right now. I wouldn't want to lose the drawing portion, I don't think, because the visual did help me.
Okay.
You know what I was sad about? The one thing that I really regret is that I have no idea what any of us look like.
And we don't know our names either.
Yeah. And and I'm kind of like, I don't know how to do this, but the other thing that it seems to me would make the rooms more meaningful is if we explicitly try to bring each of us into focus as we travel through those rooms. I don't know. Maybe, start indistinct, but, and in much the way that kind of like narrative wise, we start out as all these kind of indistinct, just kind of silhouettes. And then as we learn our stories, we kind of start to drill in and get an idea of who we are. Filling in some of those other pertinent details might help with that, and also get across the idea that we are in fact together physically traveling from room to room and
that's something I wasn't sure about though. Like, were we together or were we by ourselves but not at the same time?
I was never really sure if the conceit was that I'm seeing all of you through my monitor and we're playing pretend on Roll20, or are our characters actually on Roll20 and we the players are on the monitor, or are we dead and I'm looking at my computer and we're all pretending that we're wandering around through here, but also we see things and also you're there. And I don't know. Could I turn the metaphor layers I got a bit tangled in.
Robbie, have you ever seen the movie Defending Your Life?
No.
You should go watch Defending Your Life. Having just played this game, you absolutely need to watch Defending Your Life. because that's what this game makes me think of is that movie. It's an Albert Brooks, Meryl Streep comedy from like, I want to say like the 90s, probably something like that.
Okay.
The summary.
What's that?
Go ahead. Oh, I'm just going to read out the summary, but you're probably
please
going
do,
to go on to explain it. In an afterlife way station resembling a block of hotels, the lives of the recently deceased are examined in a court-like setting.
Yep.
It looks like a romantic comedy.
It is in fact a lovely romantic comedy. It's one of my kind of underappreciated favorites from that era of movies. Kind of like broadcast news era.
Yeah,
Meryl Streep's wonderful. Albert Brooks is very funny, and it's like kind of low key and dry and all those things that you would expect from him. And it is basically it's a rom-com version of what we just did. So
going back to kind of figuring out who we are through these rooms, I wonder if that's maybe the very last step. We find out like what our names are, and then we're judged. Or at the beginning. But I don't know if that kind of cements who we are a little too much too early.
I like that idea of before we are judged, it's okay, go around and tell me who you are and what your name is. And then judgment, you fail at, or you're off to the bad place with you.
Yeah. I think that's yeah. And I have thought about the names. If Ryan, you've played For the Queen, and you don't have names in For the Queen, do you?
Generally, no.
Yeah.
You just describe yourself, and you probably don't have a name. You probably don't have any clear descriptor, and you probably never speak to the other characters.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's kind of weird that way. But I've also played a bunch of variations upon it because Tomes will hack it to heck and back.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, there's like a bit of Fall of Magic there too. I mean, it's got that kind of a thing going on.
Yeah, and I like the idea about looks, and I'm going to think about that because I mean, in terms of like the cards, you could have questions. I think that you could devise that would kind of also focus on the looks of the other characters that could be kind of interesting.
There's also kind of the fact at the very beginning where we see each other and we know what we look like.
Mm-hmm.
And like appearance is less important than what we've done and feel through the course of this. Thoughts?
Yeah, I agree that appearance didn't seem like the most important trait, and I wouldn't really want to establish that up front because I feel like as you're picking up stuff, you should be defining who you are. I like that idea of you being kind of shadowy up until you have your face, I guess. And where was I going with? You said something that tripped a thing that I wanted to say, and I have forgotten it. It'll come back, maybe.
Maybe we start out as like just nebulous balls of energy and become slowly more clear, and then we are named and judged.
Oh, if you were to smash tumbling into this, it would be that, like, what do we see about you that shows us a time, whatever. Just if you wanted to establish more of how you look. I don't know if the game needs that.
Okay.
Because I feel like we established our look through memories, and if we didn't establish it, it just wasn't important.
Yeah, and certainly the go-to trophy question of how did this experience leave its mark on you
Mm-hmm.
that's like my favorite describe how you look question. Why do you look different after this tragedy than you did before? Well, I lost my arm.
Mm-hmm.
You can answer that as I lost my arm, or I now wear the ring that that person gave me before.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's
well, and the phrasing, how did it leave its mark on you, would also
Yeah.
leave it open, because somebody could take that physically, but it could also be a psychological or emotional mark as well that they could go into. And so,
yeah, that's like one of my favorite questions to ask for, like, to kind of get some clarity on how people are viewing their characters. You know what? I feel like I need to say, which is, you should have the confidence that if we signed up for your game, we are on board. And you don't need to spend the first 10 minutes like selling us on it.
Mhm.
Like we're there, we're ready to go. You can just throw down and we're ready to rock. So like, yeah, we wouldn't like if we weren't on board and good to go.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have clicked on the, like we all had to actively say, yeah, Robbie, we want to play your game. So like when people tell you that, trust them.
Okay.
Is the thing that I'm going to say.
Yeah, and I like when people say up front, so if at any point, I mean, if after my description this isn't like a game you want to play, you can leave. No hurt feelings.
Right.
But yes, I didn't show up because I happened to turn on my computer, and ta-da, you were there, even if that is the conceit. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. It's 3:30, and I said we would go about 3 hours, so we're a little bit over that. If you all have any additional kind of comments or suggestions, or other things about your experience that would be worth sharing, I hope you feel free. I'm on Slack regularly, and would appreciate any additional feedback you could give me. And I think I will, as my schedule permits, we'll have some. I'm going to keep on tweaking the game and revising it. But I certainly appreciate you taking the time to, join us this Saturday to give it a spin.
It's a solid start, and you should keep working on it. Okay. There's something really interesting here. I feel like so. So thanks for inviting us. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Sarah, Ryan, always a pleasure. See you guys around. Thanks a lot, folks.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yep.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.